Hi guys, today on Coffee with the Authors, it's going to be Storytime with Mark. I get asked a number of times kind of how do you develop the writing habit? It's kind of interesting. A lot of people say that they want to write, but they don't have time or they don't have this or they don't have that, or when these certain conditions apply, they're going to write. Um, and when they say I want to write, what they really mean, I believe, is I want to write. Because once you actually develop the desire to write, you're writing. That's pretty much it. So the hard part is to kind of develop that desire, and the way we do that is actually kind of interesting. So once upon a time, as kind of a side part of my job, I would take small groups of young adults, let's say maybe 12 to 20 people, mostly young men, mostly in their 20s. And I would have to kind of help train them into cardiovascular fitness. In other words, turn them into runners. We weren't running marathons, but I had to get them to where they could run, like maybe 5 miles, including up and down hills and stuff. And we start really low and slow, of course, and kind of build up to it. And without fail, after the first little run, we come back, maybe a 45-minute run or so, going at a very slow pace. We come back and someone would say, how the heck do you ever learn to like this stuff? And so one day it kind of hit me. I said, well, it's kind of interesting. Running is just like smoking. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, well, think about this. Imagine you're a kid and you want to smoke because all your friends are smoking and it's really cool. So you start and you try smoking, except for you are basically coughing and you want to puke. It feels kind of like you just went for a run for the first time. But you hang in there, and then the next day you try it again, and you try it again, and pretty soon you can smoke without coughing in front of your friends. That's a big deal. And then pretty soon you don't really mind it, and pretty soon you think you look pretty cool when you smoke because you're not choking on it. Pretty soon you actually kind of look forward to it, and then pretty soon you kind of have to do it. Okay. Running is kind of the same way. But if you were going to start smoking and you only smoked once every 3 weeks, let's say, every time you smoked, you'd be coughing and choking and puking. You would never get to the point where you actually enjoyed it and wanted to kind of do it regularly. They laughed, but there's a certain amount of truth to that. Running is kind of the same thing. You just kind of keep working on it, slowly build up. You don't just jump in all at once, of course, but you slowly build up, but you do it regularly to the point where it not just feels okay, but you actually start to like it and look forward to it. Well, here's the dirty little secret about writing. Writing is just like that also. If you only wrote maybe let's say for 45 minutes, and then you didn't write for 3 weeks, and you wrote for half an hour, and you didn't write for a couple of weeks, and you wrote for an hour, and then you took a month off, you would never really get in the habit of writing, and you'd never really get to the point where you actually enjoyed it. And your brain kind of would automatically kind of click into writer mode, and you start creating actual words on the page. So back around that same time, I put the word out to my work group, which was a couple hundred people at that time. I said, hey guys, I'm going to do a marathon this fall. Who wants to go with me? Because, a lot of people, you talk about running a marathon and they say, oh, I want to do a marathon someday. It's kind of like you tell somebody, they say, what are you doing? And you say, I'm writing a novel. They go, huh, I've always wanted to write a novel someday. So I said, okay, guys, this year could be today. In other words, today's the day. If you want to do a marathon, sign up and we will all get together and we'll train together and we'll do it. And when I put that word out, I got a lot of questions like, how do I know if I can run a marathon? And I have no idea how you run a marathon. How do we do this thing? And, can I do it? That sort of thing, like a lot of doubt, which is understandable. And I basically said, well, you can't right now. If you try to go out today and run a marathon and you're not a runner, there's no way in the world you're going to make it. You're going to be roadkill. But there is a plan for this. And if you stick to the plan and stick to the schedule and we all train according to this schedule, we will not only make it, but we'll actually have fun, and you'll be surprised at how enjoyable it is. So I ended up getting 7 or 8 takers, and we got a plan together, and we trained. We trained together a few times, but mostly we kind of had to train separately. But I kept I touch base with all of them via email constantly. You know, how's it going? What are you doing? So on and so forth. And we had only one guy. We had one guy who's probably the fittest guy of the group of people I had. He was a young guy in pretty good shape, but he didn't really stick to the plan. Like really early on, the schedule called for, I think, a 3-mile easy run. And he went out and he did 10 miles about as hard as he could. And of course, you know, he injured himself and he ended up dropping out. He didn't make it to the marathon with us. But the rest of them did. They went through the training and they stuck to the plan. And we did the marathon. And the punchline is everybody made it. And I was so mixture of just happiness and joy and pride in those guys. And it was just a great day for me, and it was a great day for them. And a couple of them came up to me afterwards and said things like, you know, I learned a lot about myself. And if I could do that, I think I could do anything. So that same sort of wisdom applies to writing. In other words, especially if you're kind of an emerging writer and you're thinking, how do I write a novel? Yeah, you can just jump in and start writing and it might work out perfectly for you. And I'm not going to discourage you from doing that at all. There is no one way to do it. But if you don't think of yourself as a writer yet and you want to become a writer, here's some things that may be useful to you. Have a plan, have a schedule, just kind of stick to it. And I don't mean write every day or something or write 10,000 words a day or one of those things that's almost guaranteed to fail. And then you get discouraged and you quit. I mean, your plan, it might involve something like writing most days of the week, writing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then maybe over the weekend sometime. Writing for a reasonable amount of time when you have time, 30 minutes to 60 minutes maybe. Most days. And then kind of take your plan and post it somewhere where you can see it. And it's like, oh yeah, today's a writing day for me. I'm going to write today. And stick to the schedule. And the interesting thing is, once you do this for a while, once you have a schedule and you stick to it for a while, after a while, you can throw that schedule away. The schedule is simply to kind of get you to go writing. But once you do it enough, you get the benefits of writing, just like you get the benefits of running. And no one has to tell you to do it because you want to do it. You pretty much want to do it every day. And this is one of those areas where the 80% rule pretty much applies. In other words, don't sweat the small stuff. Don't worry about minor deviations. If you miss your like Tuesday night writing session, make it up on Wednesday, or maybe make it up over the weekend, or maybe just don't worry about it and just kind of move on, stick to the schedule. It's what you do 80% of the time that really matters. It's this weird but very productive sort of spiral, kind of an upward spiral instead of a death spiral. If you write regularly, you get better at it. If you get better at it, you enjoy it more. If you enjoy it more, you want to do it more. And if you do it more, you get better at it, and then you enjoy it more. And pretty soon you're really good at it and you do it all the time. You can't wait to do it again. It's kind of an upward spiral. So that's kind of the dirty little secret, is just to have it be kind of part of who you are. And just tell you, I am a writer. I write. And don't make it an unusual thing to write. Don't make it a special thing. Don't put any pressure on yourself like, oh, I finally cleared the decks and I got the kids to bed or whatever it is, and I can finally sit down and write. And oh my God, I better produce something because I finally have some time set aside to write. And that kind of pressure is not going to help you at all. You want to just, like I said, see yourself as a writer. Writing is something you do on a regular basis all the time, just like eating and sleeping and going to work or going to school or reading a book or whatever else it is that you do regularly. And once you kind of internalize the identity of writer into your being, you will find that it's just something that you think about even when you're not doing it. And that's where the real magic kicks in. Dorothea Lange famously said, a camera is an instrument that teaches us how to see without a camera. And writing is almost the same thing. Writing kind of teaches us how to create even when we're not sitting in front of our computer writing. You write often enough, pretty soon you're thinking about story creation all the time. You do the dishes, you walk the dog, you go for a run, you drive to work, and you're thinking about your story or an idea for a different story or a way to improve the current chapter that you're working on or whatever. But your brain will kind of automatically default to thinking about story creation rather than thinking about I don't know, gossip or thinking about the Netflix show that you watched the night before, or thinking about what the neighbors are doing or some other meaningless thing. You will think about your creativity, your work, your writing. And at that point, motivating yourself to write is no longer an issue. It's almost like eating. For most typical people, you don't have to remind them. They don't need a schedule to eat. They want to eat, kind of maybe more often than they should, and it's not really hard to get them to eat. The benefit about writing is it's not going to add any extra calories to your diet. So that's sort of my little take on how you develop these kind of habits. Is you turn them into something that gives you a benefit rather than thinking of it as a chore. You think of it as a privilege, as something you'd like to do. I always say, please don't tell my editor, but I would pay to write. And that's actually true, I would, because it's to the point where writing is enjoyable. I'm not saying it's not hard work. It's really hard work, and it doesn't always go as well as I want. It's not always real smooth. Sometimes it's very frustrating, but overall, I absolutely love it. And it's one of those things that to me is kind of like, it's like a privilege, like, oh boy, I get to write today. And you want to get to that point because that's when I think we start creating our best work. So that's my little take on developing the writing habit. And my only real advice to you is keep writing.